Hello and welcome to our very first Aberhonddu District Male Choir Sound of the Beacons podcast. I am Marc Williams and I am the Secretary of the choir. On today's show, we're going to be talking about how the choir is getting back to practices in person, and we'll be joined by a couple of guests talking about their experiences with the choir. It has been a difficult and challenging time for choirs, performers and musical groups over the past 15 months. But now, in Wales, there is a glimmer of hope, with groups starting to get back together for practices, including our own. The choir, like so many, have embraced technology during the lockdowns and tried many practices, along with other activities over Zoom, to keep ourselves busy, but also essential to keep in contact with our members. Everyone singing to themselves with different internet speeds and making sure all were on mute was definitely a challenge, and we all never imagined it would go on for such a long time. Aberhonddu District Male Choir started practices again on our usual Friday nights at the end of May, and we are so lucky to have Brynnych Barn just outside Brecon as a venue to practice, with plenty of space both indoors and out. The boys are socially distanced and wearing masks where appropriate, which has its own challenges to overcome. After the 15 months, all are in need of a practice to get the voice back into shape and to learn the individual parts again. Hopefully, later this year, we will be able to perform to a live audience in person and not to a virtual one like the last year. Choirs will always have to face new obstacles, but the camaraderie is so strong, along with the sheer enjoyment of singing, that they adapt to the new challenges and move forward, always looking to the future. Now I have not one, but two musical directors of the choir as our special guests. Lyn Thomas, the musical director, and Lynne Griffin, also known as Lyn Briar, the deputy MD. They are both an integral part of the choir, keeping the boys in line, and are fully dedicated to all the rehearsals or concerts that are held, down to choosing all the choir pieces. Thank you both so much for joining us today. Firstly, Lynne T, can I ask how long you have been with the choir?
46 years and counting.
Fair play.
Yeah, I started in 1976. A really good friend of mine, Sian Vaughan, her dad was in the choir, Aberhonddu, and he asked me would I come and be the deputy accompanist. So I thought, well, yes, it won't involve much, So I went that Friday and turned pages for the accompanist, and the accompanist never came back.
Oh.
So I was the accompanist from then, and I think I was their accompanist for about 15 years, and then Mrs. Lyn Thomas was the conductor, or the MD, and she finished, and I took over the MD, and we've had a few accompanists since then, but at the moment we've got Bex, and she's been with us quite some time. But yes, I think I'm one of the longest actual member to be in the choir. I think I'm the only one that was there 46 years ago.
That's a good achievement.
Well,
Can you have a look back?
I don't know about that.
Well, for nearly 15 months, there have been no choir practice. Have you missed it?
I didn't miss it at first. I've got to say it was like a lovely holiday. I didn't have to go out every Friday night, and I didn't have to do the preparation that I've got to do. That you've got to think what you've got. You can wing some of them, but you've got to think, what should we do tonight, and why are we doing it, and are we going to note bash it, or are we going to just perform, just sing through it? But then after about 3 or 4 weeks, there was nothing to look forward to somehow. Well, I don't think there was anything to look forward to anyway. No. There hasn't been anything to look forward to over the last year. But yes, I have missed it, and I've got to say it is nice to be back. It's been part of my life for so long that I did miss it. Yes, yeah.
Lynne B, what do you enjoy most about being part of the choir?
I think for me it's probably sort of obviously the music. I enjoy making music, and but also there's a good social aspect, isn't there? Then, whilst we do take it seriously, we also have a bit of a laugh, and yes, and I really miss seeing the boys. It's as Lynne said, it's really good to be back.
No, that's great. So, why do you think choirs are so important?
I think it draws people out. It gives them something to do, and I think it's maintaining that tradition that we have in Wales of choral singing, and particularly male voice singing. Yes, I think we've got, it's an ageing population within the choir, if you like, but we do also have young people, which is good to see as well, to maintain that tradition.
Well, I do think that the pandemic has made people more appreciative of live performances, and hopefully they will support performers when concerts and events reconvene. Also, during lockdown, many have turned to music for solace and may even want to be part of a musical group. So this is a question for both of you. What advice do you have for someone who would want to join a choir?
Join it. I don't think there's anything finer than being in a group of musicians, whether it's a choir, a band, an orchestra, anything. That you make friends like that you keep for life. I've got friends that I made in college choir and college orchestra, and I still see them. And I think it's as Lynn said, it's the social aspect as much as the music aspect and the well-being. It's just the social aspect, and you're part of that group, and somehow, for some reason, and I don't know what that reason is, it seems to be a very tight-knit group, and if one is hurting, we all hurt, sort of thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with Lynn, and I think, they say, don't they, that it sets off, when you start singing, it sets off those endorphins, those happy endorphins, and I can certainly attest for that. It does make you feel good. I mean, physically as well, as you stand up and sing, and sort of, it opens everything up in a way and makes you feel so much better, sort of physically and mentally, for me anyway.
So, Lindy, what is your favourite male voice choir piece, and why?
I don't know. I think, like Lynn, we've both grown up in a sort of a Welsh environment with a Welsh ethos and chapel and gamanfas and Welsh choirs. So I love all the Welsh hymns. But then somebody give a nice modern piece and I think, oh yes, that's nice. I honestly I haven't got one. I really like Gwynllan yr Oddwyd i'n Gofal. I love that one. I like Edward Rhys Harry's The Lord's Prayer. There's loads of them, and really I think I like the ones we're doing at the moment, whichever ones they are, I've got a few I don't like, but I won't bore you with those.
What about you, Lynn?
Yeah, very much like Lynn, really. And I mean, as Lynn said, I was brought up church, but I used to go to Sunday school in chapel because I used to sing there. And as Lynn mentioned, the gamanfa, and I just went along for that, really. And so hymns, arrangements of hymns, I like very much. I also like the slushy stuff. When I say to people, I sing with a bit of passion, I like those. And particularly, I like Robert Arwyn. I think he writes really well for choirs. And Anfona Fangel is a favourite of mine, although this is a bit depressing now, but it reminds me of the time when my father was dying, and so every time I conduct that I think, oh, don't cry, but there's something about it that's lovely as well.
And it's something meaningful for you.
Yes.
I would like to ask you both, what has been one of your highlights being with the Aberhonddu and District Male Choir?
I'd love to say, well, I think every concert is a highlight, but unfortunately it's not. I tell you what I love. I love seeing them perform it in the Thousand Voices, because the hard work we've done, we've been there now, I don't know how many times, a lot of times. And the hard work that they've put into it over the last 2 years before we go. And then to see them up there with all these, great choirs, like the London Welsh and Penderys, and then you've got some from Canada and some from Africa and then there's Little Brecon Choir in the middle of them, and I feel very, very proud of their achievement, and especially in the Thousand Voices, singing some of those songs, because they were written for the big choirs of centuries ago, basically, the Crusaders and things like that. Well, Brecon Choir wouldn't manage to sing those on their own, but of course they get to sing the greats on the stage in the Albert Hall.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with Lynn. I mean, obviously I haven't been with the choir as long as Lynn has, so I haven't had as many opportunities, I suppose, to experience things, but certainly the Thousand Voices, I mean, I didn't think I would enjoy it, because I used to think, oh, I can't imagine anything worse than sort of all those male voice choirs together, I like them on their own, but actually it's quite thrilling. And, you know, as well as that, back to the social aspect again, you know, going to London.
Yes,
I hate travelling by coach, but I actually really enjoyed it, you know, just that going with everybody in that social environment and then sort of turning up for the concert on the Saturday night. Thrilling,
So that was some of the highlights. Let's go on to some of the challenges that you may face with the choir.
For me, I think it's the Welsh words, because, you know, in fairness, they are quite difficult if you're not a Welsh speaker, and sort of trying to get that diction and the pronunciation, and also to get everybody singing the same notes in the right order. Because, you know, to be fair, the majority are not readers, are they? So, you know, they listen, and so, well, I hope they listen, certainly. But so I think for me, it's sort of, diction and getting them to sing the right notes and phrasing and all that,
Unfortunately, we can all identify with this. The age most of them are at, it is difficult for them to learn words as well. It doesn't come as easy, you know, your memory doesn't serve you as well as when you were in your 20s sort of thing. So that again is a challenge, and especially as Lynn says, the Welsh words, because they don't know what they're singing about, and we're expecting, the pair of us are expecting them to be absolutely word perfect, diction perfect, pronunciation perfect,
note perfect.
and they note perfect, and they don't know what they're singing about. Do you know what I mean? No. It is that I think is probably one of the most challenging things to do.
And you see, on top of that, men can't multitask.
No. So you've had
no comment.
You've had it to start with them. Yeah.
It's been fantastic that the choir are meeting again to practice, even though under very different circumstances, being outdoors and socially distanced. It is going to be difficult. However, I bet you are both looking forward to getting back into the swing of things and practicing with the boys. What sort of pieces will you be looking at over the next few months? And are there any projects going ahead?
Well, I think like we've been concentrating on for the last 3 weeks. I mean, we've got to remember that these gentlemen haven't sung for, well, now on 16, 17 months really. So you've got to get them back to remembering the pieces. You've got to get their vocal cords back into swing. You've got to get their breathing. So we've been concentrating on relearning some of the songs, which I think they're quite happy with. As a choir, we've commissioned a song. Tom Morris has written the words for us, and it's all about Breconshire basically. And Richard Vaughan has nearly finished the composing part of it, the music part of it. So we're hoping within the next month to have sorted the copyrights out, and we'll be starting to learn that. And we've also got a few, we purchased about 4 new ones over lockdown that I'd like to start with the choir. So there's quite a lot of new things to learn. But then you've got to strike the balance between keeping the older stuff going, because the concerts will come and we won't be ready to perform the new stuff. So we've got to fall back on the old stuff. So you've got to keep that balance going as well.
Yeah, I mean, to pick up, I think, some of the music that we have been singing, but I'm really looking forward to this new piece. I've had sight of it, and for me, I think it's really lovely. I think the men will enjoy it.
I think so, and I think it's got the promise of becoming sort of our signature tune.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's good for the choir.
Well, exactly. Yes.
And I think it's good for Welsh music that we're commissioning new work as well. In the Welsh language, and B, by Welsh composers and poets.
Because this is funded by Mentor Iaith.
Yes,
that's right.
The Mentor Iaith, Mentor Brycheiniog y Maes Yfed have kindly funded it.
Well, finally, we all cannot wait to perform to a live audience again, and not over a virtual online concert. What venue do you particularly enjoy performing in, and is there one that you would like the choir to go to?
For me, I'd like to take the boys, and going overseas I know isn't going to happen soon, but I'd like to go to the Menham Gate. I think I've seen sort of, on Facebook and social media, sort of Welsh choirs singing at the ceremonies they have there, and it seems so atmospheric and emotional. I think it would be a really wonderful experience.
I'd come there with you.
If you're invited.
I tell you where I'd love to take you, and I mean, you've all been there before, but I'd love to take you to the Albert Hall and I would love to conduct a piece in the Albert Hall with all the other choirs. I'd really love that, yes, before I retire.
We'll try and arrange that.
Oh yeah, we've got to get there first.
Yes.
We'll all have to have vaccination papers.
There's plenty of room to social
distance, yes, that's
Yes.
true, yes. They won't be doctors' patients, they'll be vaccination papers, yeah.
Well, thank you both again for being our guests for this very first Sound of the Beacons podcast. Join us again next week, where we'll be talking more about the choir and we'll be joined by another guest. Just remember, singing in a choir is therapy, healthier than drinking and more fun than working out. Keep singing and see you next time.